Well, hello. Today is the 1980 TV movie, A Tale of Two Cities. Charles Darnay gives up his titles in France and goes to England to start a new life. His uncle tries to get him hanged as a spy in England, but he is saved by barrister Sidney Carton. This trial introduces him to Lucie Manette, who he eventually marries. She is the daughter of a famous prisoner of the Bastille who was imprisoned by Charles' uncle. The French Revolution breaks out with the storming of the Bastille. Charles hears of a former servant imprisoned and goes to France to help. Only he is arrested as an aristocrat. His father-in-law manages to save him from execution. Only a vengeful woman who has the diary of the father-in-law manages to have him convicted and sentenced to execution. Sidney Carton, who also loved Lucy, arranged to take the place of Charles at the guillotine. Charles manages to escape France and Sidney sacrifices his life. So this 1980 movie was made by ITC Entertainment, and it was filmed primarily in London and Paris, and it was done on a budget of $5 million. Most of the money came from Hallmark, which I guess sponsored the movie, and it was aired on CBS. And it's, of course, based on the novel by Charles Dickens that he wrote in 1859, one of his more famous ones. And, of course, it starred Chris Sarandon, who played dual roles as Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton, and Alice Krige, who probably everyone most familiar with as the Borg Queen from Star Trek First Contact. And here you can see that her in a much younger age, she was quite pretty. And had Peter Cushing as the Dr. Manette. And it was a pretty enjoyable movie. I know I first was introduced to it in 7th grade when the English teacher we had, just before spring break, just kind of, showed us that because we weren't really doing much work then, only the really evil teachers would make you work just before vacation. And I think it was a big hit with the class, and I remember I loved it, and I was glad that it finally got, put on Blu-ray. And it still holds up pretty enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable movie. I think it really captures the spirit of the French Revolution. It starts with the kind of evil aristocrat running over a kid with his carriage, and his only real concern is that the horses might be injured. He kills the little boy, and then it's just very much the chaos of it, or you can just be denounced by practically anyone and get the guillotine. And of course, it had the love story and the self-sacrifice of Sidney, who is kind of a bit of a drunk in that, but he did love Lucy, and he gave his life so that the man he loved and the father of her child could live. And it's an enjoyable movie. I think it's a very enjoyable one. I've never read the book. I think I'd like to because it sounds like a good book. I know that Tale of Two Cities has been adapted to film about a number of times. I think I did a search and it was 6, even twice in the silent era. And like I said, 1935 movie is supposed to be the definitive one, but I really enjoy this movie. It's about, almost 2.5 hours long. It was like a 3-hour movie when they first aired it on CBS. And it's just an enjoyable movie. I highly recommend it. And if you stuck with me this long, I thank you. You're a unique individual.